Hey everyone, I'm Sean from CoreSWX, and welcome back to the CoreCast, where we highlight industry professionals from all different areas of the professional video industry. We have a very special guest here for you today. He's a creative director at Still Moving Media, and he also serves as the head of their film team. So I'd like you all to give a very warm welcome to Dale Campbell. Dale, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you very much for having me, Sean.
So tell us a little bit about, for those who may not know, just a brief synopsis about what Still Moving Media is.
So very capsule description of what we are. About 10 years ago, I started the business with my business partner, Spencer. Really, we were just a couple of people who enjoyed doing this kind of stuff. And then gradually over the course of the past 10 years, it's grown. And the past 3 years, we've just exploded. So we've now got a team of 11. We're moving into a massive new studio and we do all kinds of shoots. So where we started off, just as I'm sure everyone does, doing everything they can, trying to get a little bit of a feel for what's out there and what they like filming or photographing, because Spencer's on the photography side. We gradually worked our way to the point where we're doing vehicle shoots, we're doing fashion shoots, we're doing lots of corporate work as well. So, there's a mix, but that does afford us the opportunity to do some really fun stuff and keep growing the team, which is great.
That's so cool. And I've seen a lot of your work. It seems so, I mean, a lot of it's really cool. I can't even think of a better word than that. But do you have some favorite projects that you've worked on?
Yeah, definitely. I think kind of working backwards chronologically, we just before lockdown got to work on a really cool project, which is with another brand that we actually work with, Manfrotto and Vitek. We've done quite a lot of work with, and we actually got to create the campaign video for their new fast tripods, which have just launched. I think the official launch was yesterday. That all got held off, the situation we're in. It was meant to be much earlier in the year, about 3 months ago, but everything's been delayed, and now we're able to share this cool project. And that was a shoot which spanned 7 days, but there were so many different parts of it. We had to travel to 3 countries. We had to do 5 shoots over those 7 days. So there's a lot of logistical planning, and that's where having a team behind us, working with 2 of the guys, Naoki and Ben, who are actually doing most of the filming, because I'm just, for that shoot, prancing around in front of the camera, carrying tripods, setting up tripods, and they're actually doing the real filming. And then back room, we've got Joe making sure that we've got flights, we've got models, we've got hotels, cars, all the rest of it booked. And when things don't go right, she's there to make sure that something is planned out so that we can move on to the next thing and make sure that there's actually a chance of getting a shot. So in that particular case, because we're traveling between all of those different countries, we've got to have the right kit. We've got to have everything planned out meticulously. And at the moment that we were doing the shoot in Iceland, we were meant to almost travel directly over to Italy. But because everything started getting locked down in Italy, Joe was watching the situation, and we got a text in the airport from the airline saying, "Oh, you're getting a flight to Barcelona, not to Italy." So she was just there watching and thinking, if the guys go there, they might get quarantined. So we're going to switch it all out. And I think that's, I mean, it's a luxury to have that, but it's certainly something that is Still Moving. We've tried to build, having the whole team behind us, so that when we go out and we do these shoots, it isn't just a case of going out and filming. It's a case of making sure that you're going to the right place, you're going to be able to capture what you need, and you have all of those extra little things that are going to make your life so much easier. And, a bag full of core batteries that actually give us the power.
Of course. So, I mean, you mentioned that's something that kind of blows my mind a little bit. You went to 5 different countries for this shoot. Is that sort of like par for the course for the kind of things you do? Do you travel a whole lot?
Yeah, I never imagined 10 years ago when we started doing this, it was just 2 people who liked filming and taking photographs and could see that there was some commercial viability to doing that. So Spencer's got a real business head, and he was able to identify opportunities. There were clients that he was working with on the photography side, so we start to feed in video. And you never dream that you're going to go from that to having a whole studio, to having all of this equipment, to having a team, and doing that much travel. I mean, the travel side of it, I actually moved over to filming more when I started to have a family, because I was traveling a lot as a musician. About 12, 15 years ago was my heyday for doing touring as a musician. And I thought, well, I want to slow that down. I just want to stay, in the UK a little bit while my children are young. And then we're shooting in, I think the past year, we've done Honduras, LA, El Salvador, Hong Kong, China, Italy, Switzerland, Hintertux, which is in Austria, Netherlands. We've been to Paris, Spain, Iceland. It's just all over the place. And some of it can be absolutely non-stop. So you're just going from one shoot to the next. But hey, it's great fun and we enjoy what we do. And it would be very, very hard to do without a whole team behind you. So that's, I think, one of the biggest things to take away from this. If you're just someone starting out, try and surround yourself, even if you're not employing them, even if you're not building a company, surround yourself with really good people you can rely on, because it makes your life so much easier.
Right. So it sounds like you've definitely been to a lot of really cool places, and I didn't even know that you were a musician. That's awesome.
Yeah, for my sins.
If you don't mind me asking, what kind of music were you playing?
So I was a guitarist for a very, very long time. That's actually what I trained as coming up. So I went to the Academy of Contemporary Music and I played the guitar, and that was kind of my whole identity. I just loved doing it. And I guess between the year 2000 and 2005, I was really starting to build a reputation, go gig, tour, record albums, that kind of thing. And then around 2005, you started to be able to record videos, and the kind of guitar that I played was very visual. So I thought that's kind of what I want to be able to. I don't want to send a CD to someone. I want to send a demo pack that has some videos in so they can see what I do as well as hear what I do. So I started filming that. And over the course of the next few years, I kind of like techie things, can't help myself. You get more cameras. We all know how it is. You get one, you get some lenses, you start to go, oh, maybe I could get a slider, or maybe I can get a DSLR when DSLRs came out. So gradually, I'm starting to film more and more and more as I'm doing that, till I get to the point around 2010 where I start to move into it full time with Spencer. So it was a gradual transition, but the music definitely led me down that path and gave me something to film. There was a reason to do it. I was making YouTube videos, tutorials, that kind of thing. So there's a bit of purpose behind it. And whenever I learned a new technique, it was because I needed to make the videos look better. I needed to learn how to color grade a bit because I was too pink because it was really hot in the studio or something. So I'm learning to push and pull things, and I'm learning how to cut to the music. Music being a massive part of this. In fact, if we look at the Manfrotto shoot, when we were planning that, I actually had the piece of music that we used on that picked out from, I think, the second or third week of planning. I found this piece and I just knew that it was going to be the piece of music. And I know that a lot of people watching this will have had struggles with their clients. This is a safe place. There are no clients here. None of them are going to be watching. Where they perhaps don't understand. You'll go through a project and you'll have this idea in your head of what the music is going to give it in terms of pacing and the way that you can move through the edits. And then at the end of the project, they will get to a point where they just go, can we try a different track? And you kind of just despair and your head explodes and you say, no, that's the reason that everything is the way it is. That you can't just change it. It's the soul of the video almost. I'm going off on a tangent. Yes, I was a musician.
Well, no, that's so interesting to me, especially because I hear so many people talk about that path, and it's more common than you think. That people will be in that world and sort of. I was lucky enough to have a conversation with somebody from HBO who's giving me a very similar story, that they had started music and gone into this industry. So do you find? Are there commonalities, common threads? You mentioned that sort of cutting to the music. Is the creative process sort of similar at all?
There's definitely similarities, and I think when everyone is working in a creative space, you find that people work in different ways, but there are things that, because I taught a lot of guitar and I had to really understand, even though, when I was learning, I hated all of the scale side of it and the music theory side of it. When I developed a bit further, I had to really understand that to be able to teach the ideas that I was trying to put across and show people how I got to certain places within compositions. And having to explain that, you realize that all of that technical stuff that you learned, and this does come full circle, is important because raw creativity is always something to be embraced. But you find people get to a point and they can't go any further and they don't know quite how they got there. and they're kind of stuck up this path with nowhere to go. And that's where the technique, that's where the knowledge of theory, whether it's music theory or whether it's the theory of how you light something or the theory of how lenses actually work in relation to your sensor, in relation to light and all of the rest of that, it helps you to get out of those difficult positions. And I guess when I was starting off 10 years ago, I didn't have all of that technique. I didn't have all of that theory, but I've gradually built it up and built it up. And I'm so glad that in that time, when I had time to do it, I did. Because if we were going out on the kind of shoots that we have the good fortune to go out on now, and I didn't have the theory to back it up, when the client from the agency says, I don't quite like that, we need it to look more reflective, you need to know exactly what to do at that moment to get that look or change that look or make someone look a little bit brighter in the face. If you've got talent and they're famous and you need them to look good, you need to know how to work with the face. You need to know how to put a catchlight in their eyes. So all of these things, they're kind of unrelated to music, but the principles are the same. You learn the technique so that when you get into those difficult situations, you can just go, I know, I've been here before. I know what I have to do to get out. I've got a set of principles that I can work to. Does that make sense? Maybe.
Of course, yeah. No, I mean that's so interesting how those two things sort of relate. But speaking a little bit, you talked a little bit about technical knowledge and having that theory. So I want to know a little bit about kind of the technical side of what you do. Do you have a set of gear that you use or specific equipment that you like to rely on?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going out on shoots all the time. Granted, over the past 3 months, fewer shoots. But the equipment has to really work hard. Camera system we're on is all Black Magic. So that's Ursa G2s, Ursa Pros, and Pocket 6Ks. Gives us really nice image. The cameras are, within the scheme of cinema cameras, a very affordable option, considering how amazing the image is and how many features and functions you have within the cameras. And then strapped on the front of that, we'll have Schneider Cine lenses. Most of the time we're going with primes, and those are what we use. Sometimes the shoot dictates that we'll need to use a zoom, so maybe we do that at that point. And then obviously we've got core batteries powering all of that. So on the pockets, we're using the power bases to be able to run those cameras all day. And then we also actually use the power bases for a couple of other purposes. On the photography team, they are strapping them into their Canon 5D4s. Don't think they use them on the 1DX actually, because I think the 1DX has a very particular proprietary battery. But anything with the 5Ds, they're powering them. And any of the screens we're using, we're also using core batteries. So the small HD screens with wireless built in are an absolute godsend on shoots, because especially now, you often need to have a client standing there looking at something and just being able to give them a tiny screen that's really clear with a battery on the back that will last pretty much most of the shoot. And then if we need to switch it out, it's just one quick change. And we don't need to worry about anything else. We don't need to worry about tons and tons of smaller MPF batteries. We just got that strapped on the back. So that's really cool. And obviously lighting, grip, that kind of thing. We're using big HMIs. When we do commercial shoots, we do higher lighting in, but we try to have as much as possible in-house. And when we're working on stuff like the fashion shoots, it's often a para. So if you're in America, it would be kind of equivalent to a breezy. I'm not sure how you say it. But we actually use the Broncolor equivalents, which are a little bit smaller, a little bit lighter weight HMIs, and they just slot into these huge umbrellas and make models look fantastic. So we've got all of that in-house. It almost pains me to list it, because every time we're looking at those bits of kit, we're talking about huge chunks of money that we've dropped over the years. And it's throughout that 10-year period always been a case of us looking at what we're doing and saying, we could be doing what we're working on now, just the smaller shoots, but we want to do some bigger shoots. We want to do some cooler shoots. So we should invest this money and get some more equipment and then be able to go out and do these fashion shoots with a big parabolic reflector or whatever it is that we're doing. The black arm rig is a prime example of us wanting to do something really, really cool, but ultimately having to, rather than, give ourselves some money, we have to reinvest it in the company, get the equipment, and then be able to go out and do it. Because in the UK, hiring equipment outside of like the big centres, London, Manchester, some around Birmingham, I guess, Bristol is okay, but you can't as easily as, say, in LA or New York, go out and just pick up all of this kind of stuff. So we've taken the view that we want to have everything in-house, so the team get comfortable with it. They know the kit inside out. They can do a shoot, a passion project, kind of like the equestrian shoot that we did, where it was something that no one's going to pay us to do it at that point. But we wanted to show clients that we work with that you could have this. You're never asking us for this, but you have a brand of country clothing and you could have something like this rather than just showing a model standing in front of a white cyc, which is maybe what you've been doing before. Maybe you do this instead and just have one dramatic hero video. So being able just to say, okay, in 2 weeks, we'll get the whole team, like 7 or 8, maybe 8 of us went out and did that shoot, because that's how many people it takes to do that safely, to do it well, to make sure that all of the equipment is rigged in good time, because we're trying to catch, sunset light. So it's a very fine line between being able to get it and not getting it. And of course, we have great talent in front of the camera. We're able to go to people and say, we're going to do something amazing. It's going to look cool. We can't exactly describe it. Imagine a dramatic horse chase in a film, and that's kind of what we're going to do. So yeah, we have a lot of kit, and it's nice to have. I appreciate that a lot of people watching this. Sorry, my earpiece keeps drifting out, so that's why I'm fiddling around here. People watching this won't have access to that necessarily. So you might think, well, that's fine. You've got a load of Ursas. You don't necessarily need to have an Ursa to go out and shoot something fantastic. Having an idea and having a grasp of the principles is just as important. And a lot of the shoots that we do that we love, we don't use all of the kit. So we've got some of these fashion shoots on the screen behind me, and there's a fashion showreel somewhere. I'm not sure if you got it. But a lot of the shots from that are natural light. They are shot on one camera on an easy rig, and that could be done potentially by anyone watching this. They could go out, they could work with a model, they could find some cool locations, they could try and find the right light. Maybe you get a bit of bounce in there, maybe you get some camera movement in there, but you don't even need a gimbal. You can do really cool stuff just with a tripod or just handheld, or maybe if you're getting into sort of like old school, you get a slider or something, depending on the look you're going for. Whatever you have, you can make something cool with, and then you can use that as a jumping off point to go to a brand and say, hey, would you like something a little bit like this? And they look at it and they go, oh, wow, that's a really cool location. That's a really cool shoot. We should get that guy in to do our fashion film, our launch for our jewelry brand, or whatever it happens to be. So it's a great way of, if you can, use the kit that you've got, take it to its maximum potential before you add more stuff on. Because every time we add a bit of kit on, we're talking about a 3 to 4 month learning curve for everyone to get truly comfortable rigging it, setting it up, how it fits into our ecosystem and workflow and all the rest of it.
Right. That's so cool that
talking
thing was done on spec. I mean, that's that's we'll talk about it's like a power move there. But
yeah, it's just the ability to go out and do that. If we had to rent all of that kit, there's no way we'd go out and do that. We'd have to spend thousands of pounds to do that shoot. So it would be very hard to go out and do that. Now we have the kit because we've done commercial shoots, so we may as well use it on these shoots and get the best look we possibly can, and use it as a jumping off point to say, hey. And a lot of people have seen that. People see it on a showreel. We've played it to clients, and every time they see it, they suddenly realize. And you have to remember, a lot of time, we talked about creativity earlier. People aren't necessarily creative at their core. They are sometimes very, very literal. And you find in certain areas of business that you go into that you're going to have to interact with people who don't think in those visual terms. So when you're throwing out references and you're saying, we could do something like this, and it'd be a bit like Tomb Raider, and she'd come in on a horse, and they can't see it. They can't imagine how their brand could afford that. They can't imagine how that actually happens. What goes into it. Is it just one person kind of hanging out the window of a car with a gimbal? Is it something you shoot on a tripod? They just have no idea of the paraphernalia around it, and why it takes skill, why it takes effort, why it takes a team. So you kind of have to show them this, have the behind the scenes as well. That's where behind the scenes imagery is important, because it helps you to demonstrate the craft. And once they see that, they go, I get it now. I understand why we have to pay for whatever it is to make it good. It's like the first time you work with a fashion brand and they're starting off and they don't want to get a stylist in, or they don't want to get a makeup artist, and they say, oh, you know, we have someone who can do makeup. It's like, do you have someone who can do it though? Do you have someone who can really? We've got an internal guy who does video. Maybe your internal guy's good, and maybe he's got the right ideas, but does he have access to the rest of the team that we've got access to, and the equipment and the skill and the, you know, everything that goes behind it? It isn't just one person, it isn't just one bit of kit. It's the 10 years of craft to get there.
Right, of course.
So, I keep going off on tangents.
I completely enjoy them. I really do. You got a lot of really cool experience and a lot of really cool information. I want to hear a little more about, I mean, you mentioned that you use Core batteries. Are you using mostly gold mount? What are the specific batteries that you use?
So we made the jump to having bigger, proper batteries when we moved across the Ursa. So we had an Ursa 4.6K, and at that point I had to choose between V-mount, V-Locks, and gold mount. And I think V-mount are probably more common, certainly in the UK. I don't know if it's the case in the US, but I kind of started to look into the deeper stuff, you know, go into filmmaker forums and geek out a little bit on battery systems and why one might be better than the other. And it turns out that people think that gold mount is a more secure mount and is a little bit more robust if you're going out and doing stuff where you're kind of knocking the batteries or having it on your shoulder or any of this stuff. It's less likely to fail because of the 3 mounting points. And because we were buying all our stuff anyway, we kind of went that route, did the gold mount thing. And from there, it's just carried on across all of the cameras. So once you get into the system, you make your initial investments and you go through the initial pain. Same as with anything, you know, you buy it once, you buy it right. It's going to cost a certain amount of money to do that, whatever that is, whichever bit of equipment you're looking at. But if you buy it right, then it just works, and you're going to use it on every camera system that you move to, no matter what. You're going to have that same battery system backing it up. So we're now on, got quite a lot of hypercore slims. Got the new Neo Mini 9s. Is that the right one?
Right, the Neo, yes.
Yes. So those are great because obviously just bring it down a little bit lower profile on the back of the Ursa. When we're packing, you know, it's just a bit more compact, takes up less room. We tend not to go with the bigger battery sizes purely because of the travel side of things. So having to travel so much, we tend towards the smaller, lighter batteries and just having more of them. And more often than not, when I am going out on a shoot, if we're going to Honduras, say, that was just myself and Rithika acting as first AC, but she can be carrying a couple of lenses and a couple of batteries. So I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to have a big enough battery to last the whole day. We can just switch out, and it means the rig's a little bit lighter, makes it a little bit more manageable. I do like a bit of heft, but I find that I guess 100 to 150 rated batteries are about the weight that I like on the back of the camera. It balances out nicely with the lens and the follow focus for me in the way that I build it out. So those are what we're using on the Ursas. And then, like I said before, on the pockets, we've got all the power bases, and on the back of the small HD screens. Actually, one of the most unexpected things, I didn't even really know much about these batteries, but Holden, who we work with in the UK, sent us a couple to try on the backs of the small HD, 5.0 something with the Teradek wireless built in. And those just blew me away, because I've been wrangling for so long loads of little Sony MPF batteries and switching them out. And suddenly just putting that on the back and getting through the shoot day and realizing, hey, we didn't change the battery on that monitor once. It's a ridiculous thing. And I guess at the core of this, no pun intended, batteries are fundamentally mundane if you just look at them as, you know, it powers something. That's what it does. But does it do it well is the critical question. And if you don't notice it, often it's doing the best job it can. And we didn't notice those all day. And then we just looked at it and went, wow, it's still got 2 bars of battery left. That's great. We don't have to worry about that now. We can just hand it to a client. And especially actually now we're doing shoots and the COVID restrictions, having multiple smaller monitors on set is really important. So having to wrangle more batteries will be a pain in the neck. So being able just to slap those on the back, dot a few around so that agency can see it, art director can see it. Maybe there's one for hair and makeup, because hair and makeup can't get in so close anymore. They've got to be a little bit more restrained with what they're doing. So yeah, it supports everything that we do. Every single element of the shoot ultimately comes back to that thing needs power, whether it's a camera or a light or a monitor, whatever it is, we have to get it in there somehow. So yeah,
Right. It's so
they
cool
work well
you've
for
been
us.
able to use Core products to make such really cool videos and experiences there. I'm glad
Yeah,
that you mentioned the Neo because, as you may or may not know, we like to try and give a little bit of a goodie out to the people watching both on our live
oh
stream
indeed,
and yeah. So we're going to give
I
out
did not know this.
a little coupon code. You're going to use CAST3 to get 10% off all Neo batteries on our Core SWX battery website. That's coreswx.com. So yeah, that's so awesome that you use those batteries in that way. But I know you also have used Core SWX batteries in the non-production sort of way in this cool other project that
Yes,
you've worked
I
on. Tell
have
us a little
been
about
known
that.
to, yeah. I don't know if this is strictly legal.
Okay,
Yeah,
love
I
it
don't know if
already.
we can condone it. Yeah, have you got that queued up there?
I do actually. It's not a. I have no audio though. It's just going to be video. So
No
if you want
worries.
me to
I
narrate a
will
little
kind
bit.
of, I will narrate. Yes, I am at a stage of my life. I mentioned earlier that I moved away from traveling so much because I have children. My children are growing up. They're getting older, 8 and 10 at the moment, and they're starting to get into Nerf guns. I'm starting to encourage them to get into Nerf guns, and I figured this takes tons of batteries. Why am I trying to fill this thing up with tons of batteries all the time when I could just put a gold mount plate on the side of it, slap on a core battery, and then I can just recharge it whenever I want? And because technically they're not meant to take uh, gold mount batteries, it throws a lot more voltage into the Nerf gun than is probably strictly safe. So the red Nerf gun, the Mastodon, is rated around 9 to 10 volts, I reckon. And this battery is going to be 14.4, so obviously it's overvolting it quite substantially. And then the other one, the Hyperfire, is probably rated about 6 volts. So I actually had to, I strapped the battery on raw to that thing, and it did not like it at all. The motor sounded like it was going to take off. So I had to put a little voltage regulator in it. It became a much more in-depth project than I probably had time or patience for. But yeah, I strapped it on so that I can wind up the power gradually, and they hit incredibly hard. Ask any of the team. The team might be tuned into this. We tried them out in the studio, and we've got a few Nerf guns around the studio, just normal ones. And these are just antisocial.
Oh my gosh.
They really sting. And the fast one, the Hyperfire, you don't even know how many times you've been hit. You'll empty the whole drum in about 3 or 4 seconds. So 25 darts, 3 or 4 seconds. It's just one stream of pain. But I don't know that I recommend people go out and do this. I'm not sure if it's good for your Nerf guns. It's definitely not good for your Nerf guns. Actually, the batteries certainly make the motors work too hard, and they really do smell like motors that might burn out at any minute. But it
Oh,
is a lot of
jeez.
fun. Yeah, you'll have
I
to
love
come
that
over
you
to the
put the
UK at
little.
some point when we got the studio, and we'll give you a core powered Nerf gun, and you can fight for your
Oh
life.
gosh, that sounds so much fun. I love that you put the little sticker there, the little core driven along the side there. That's
Actually, I
awesome.
think that was I think that might have been Kofi or Naoki. Yeah, they started getting all the core stickers and modding up the guns. We haven't got a current shot of the red gun, but that's got a couple on there as well.
Wow,
Yeah, once
that's
we got the new studio, we're going to have a wall maybe with some of them on.
oh, there you go. That's
Talking point for
awesome.
clients.
That's great.
Hmm.
Now, I know you said you worked on the Nerf gun. Is there anything else that you've been working on recently that you want to talk about, or anything that the people watching should look forward to from you?
So we've got a lot of cool things coming up. Unfortunately, we've hit a stage now where a lot of the projects that we get to work on are through agencies or with clients that are so big they're either shooting product which isn't released yet. So, for example, a fashion brand might be shooting something for release in autumn, winter, or even next year, spring, summer. So we can't necessarily talk about it. It's all under embargo or NDA. But we have some really cool projects. There's some automotive stuff which we've recently been talking to some agencies about. I can't name names, but it'll be really cool if it comes off. We've got some fashion things coming up. Actually, we've got fashion shoot we do every year, usually over in Ireland with DeBarry, which is great fun. But if anyone's been to Ireland, the weather in Ireland is very unpredictable. So we usually get hail and rain and wind and then baking sun and then rain. So yeah, that's usually earlier in the year, and we're doing that in 2 weeks' time now. So it's going to be, I believe, just about an hour from us. So we have to travel less because of all the COVID restrictions. So that'll be a cool one, another fashion shoot. And then we have a couple of things which we're working on as personal projects. Laura, the girl who you saw in the horse video, has been kind of having conversations with us about some things that she had liked to do. And personally, I quite like the idea of doing something a little bit longer form. That was fun. And it's a lot of effort just to produce those few seconds. But we want to do something maybe between 2 minutes and 10 minutes, like a little short narrative piece with some kind of crazy chase scene. And it would take, weeks to film. So we're going to have to dot it in between other shoots. But that's going to be the next thing, something that we can put out there and say, hey, look at this. This is the basis for a film. You can look at it and compare it to anything that you like. It's gonna look great. That's where we're pitching for 2020.
That's great. And where can me, or if I want to watch, or if anybody else watching wants to follow you, should we look on a website? Do you have social media? Where should we follow you?
Absolutely. So we do have a website, although that is very much client focused. Stillmovingmedia.co.uk is where you find us, or just Google Still Moving. And then on YouTube, I'm doing a lot at the moment. Actually, during lockdown, I probably edited more videos and filmed more videos than ever before, because I've just been sitting here with this setup. I've pimped out my whole spare room with something that looks a little bit like a grading suite. And I've just been shooting video tutorials on all of the shoots that we've been doing. So we've got breakdowns of the post workflow for the Aston Martin shoot, if you're curious how we did that. We're going to have some post and pre-planning videos about the Manfrotto shoot. So the way that all comes together and how we actually worked on storyboarding and planning and logistics and actually getting the shots on set. So all of that's going on our YouTube channel. Been publishing videos really frequently. So must have been doing one a day for the past 2 months. So it's just a whole slew of content, breakdowns of cinematography, famous films, that kind of thing, where we're looking at lighting, analyzing how it's been done and how you can do it. And then on, of course, Instagram, we have our regular stream of content going up, where we've got all kinds of bits and pieces. And that's probably the best place to get us if you want to drop us a message, ask us a question, is on Instagram. And then we do have Twitter and Facebook, but the main places for us are YouTube, Instagram, and we just started a TikTok, actually. No one is quite sure what it is meant to be yet.
Okay.
The Still Moving TikTok. It's finding its feet. Occasionally we post things. We're trying to get someone to take it on. Once the team's back, maybe we'll get Louis, one of our younger members, to work out what we're meant to do on TikTok. I'm not there yet.
Very cool. Very cool. So they can follow you pretty much everywhere then. Take a look up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Awesome. Well, Dale, this was such a pleasure. I want to thank you again for coming on. And I want to remind everybody out there that you can get 10% off all Neo batteries with the code CAST3. That's CAST3. And you can use the batteries that Dale uses to make some of those incredible productions we saw earlier. So I want to thank everybody out there for watching, and we will see you on the very next CoreCast. Thanks again, Dale.
Thank you very much. Take it easy.